Hello and welcome to the magic of fishing. Today you join me on a mini adventure because I'm on a brand new river, for me at least. It's the River Loddon in Berkshire, and it's another tributary of the River Thames. It's about half an hour's drive from home, but for whatever reason I've never fished it, until today that is. And I've seen a few videos from fellow YouTubers, generally fishing during the winter for chub and perch, a few barbel as well. But I really owe today's trip to Trev, the extremely helpful fisheries manager of Farnham Angling Society. They run this stretch, Sindlesham Mill, and I came for a little recce or look about the other evening. What I love about it is there's no public access, so there's a gate for members, and once you're alongside the river you really do feel like you're cocooned away from the outside world. Not seen any other anglers on here, and Trev actually tells me that for whatever reason this stretch of river has almost fallen out of favour, or to put it more positively, it's overlooked as a really good potential fishery. It has been known in previous years for really big fish of certain species, some big barbel, some carp, chub as well. Today I'd love to catch anything just to explore its potential, but I've come armed with some lobworms, some paste, a few halibut pellets, and I'll really be fishing on the move, roving about, trying the worm to begin with, see whether there's perhaps any perch or chub around, and depending on how that goes, I've got also a stronger barbel outfit that I'll use to fish into the darkness in a likely looking spot, and we'll perhaps go for a bit more pellet and paste approach. But it's one of those really exciting trips where you don't know any of the swims, you don't know what to expect. It could be really difficult for all I know. We've not had too much rain this month. We're right at the end of August as I film this, late summer, and it's a really wild, snaggy piece of river. Not too wide. There are a few wider, slower, deeper areas, but also some nice, fast-paced and narrower areas with lots of overhanging snags, trees, lots of rafts that look great for chub or maybe a perch, as I say. And I'm really just going to enjoy exploring for a few hours this afternoon, and then we'll fish into the dark and see whether we can manage anything a bit better as dusk falls. As always, absolutely chuffed to have you along for the ride, and let's see what we can do. And this first swim I've stopped in really is quite typical of the lower reaches near where I've parked the car. It's very narrow, water's going through at a decent clip, but there's lots of overhanging willow branches. There's a reed bed that's formed in the middle of the river, and then not only does the inside margin look tempting to drop a worm in, but far bank's got that overhanging willow with some of those branches trailing the water. I'm sure there may be some of you watching who know the river well and have fished it over the years. I'd love to hear from you, if so, about your experiences. But it is new to me, and I'm really intrigued to find out what's in here, because Trevor really painted a picture of a fishery that used to be one of the prime stretches of river for Farnham. He said there used to be matches on it back in the day, and then really following on from those years it became known more as a specimen water, and perhaps some of those really exceptional fish disappeared, passed on. It fell out of favour with some, but he certainly had to do a fair bit of bank work to make it accessible in these summer months, and perhaps it is a venue that's favoured by some more in the autumn and winter time, when a lot of this weed growth is evident in some places. Certain parts of this stretch dies back down. But yeah, to hear those stories of old, when a river was really popular and saw a lot of activity, and the club probably had a really good clear picture of what kind of stocks were in here back then. But certainly Trevor implied that there's not been a lot of catch reports coming back from it, and the matches on here are a thing of the past as far as I understand it. So yeah, I'm just going to be dropping in a few likely looking swims, we'll work away upstream with the worm to begin with, and then any spots that I think look good maybe for a barbel or a chub, I'll put a few pellets in before I leave and perhaps give them a go later in the afternoon as it's getting a bit dark. We are nearly in September, so dark is coming a bit sooner, which is perhaps a little sad in terms of the summer starting to get old, but from a fishing point of view it's fantastic because we should get a bit more rain hopefully going into the rivers, and you know, you can easily fish into an hour or two of darkness without it being too late, get home at a reasonable time. So it's one of my favourite times of the year from a fishing point of view. So yeah, let's start with worm. I'm going to be fishing a simple link ledger, just a couple of SSG swan shot to begin with, might need to add to that. But I almost want to be free lining or tripping it along the bottom. That's running down to a little boom, and then I've got a very short hook length, pretty strong stuff. This is a lighter outfit, really aimed more at perch or chub, so it's a short rod, £6 main line, £6 hook length, and I've got a bit of a tougher barbel outfit for later. But let's give it a first cast and see if there's anything around. Using quite a big hook as well, a size 6, because I've got some real big juicy lobworms here. It's an absolutely classic bait for exploring a new piece of river. So I'll be happy with anything today just to get an idea of what's in here, but perhaps appeal to a perch or a chub. I think I'll make the first drop in straight down the inside margin, not even bothering with a rod rest, just laying that rod on the ground, and it's quite a soft tip, it's about an ounce, so I should see any plucks. I've got a few red maggots as well, but I'll keep trickling in if I do see some indications, or if a spot looks just right for a perch or a chub. As long as it's not too weedy or snaggy, it's always worth retrieving a worm nice and slow, almost like you're drop shotting or using a little jig. Explore a bit more of the river. No interest that time. Let's try out off the point of those reeds. Bit of a slack there. And as much as I love float fishing, I do think link ledgering is a great way of exploring a new river. You can take the shot off and almost free line if you want to bounce a worm or a bit of meat down the swim. You can add more shot if you're in a pacier stretch or definitely want to hold bottom in one place. And whatever the depth of water, you know you're fishing on the bottom. But yeah, it's somewhere I could enjoy coming back perhaps in winter when the weed growth dies down and have a go at trotting too. Reading the website, there's talk of even an occasional sea trout coming through, and there is actually a separate stream over behind me where the river splits off over a small weir. That's private, there's no fishing there, but the weir then runs off into a small stream, really pacey, snaggy, just a few little spots here and there you might be able to drop a bait in, so I might give that a go as well. But yeah, there's talk of good pike fishing, and in the slower, deeper stretches, bream, tench. Really is a mystery to me, and it'll be interesting to see whether I can find the fish today and if they're in a feeding mood. Well, we've had our first bite, which was very exciting to see that tip whip round, and we've got our first fish. Target species, perch, Ow! A spiny perch. Even if he's a tiddler, very welcome. Second cast. Really nice to see that tip pull round. Don't they have big appetites? Of course they can be shoalfish, perch, especially smaller ones like that, but sometimes those shoals come in mixed sizes, so let's give it another go off that point. Slack water and see if there's anything else. In the mood for a worm. You'll have seen in some of my recent videos that I've been fishing some pretty public places which I enjoy just as much. It's just different ways to enjoy your fishing, but yeah, I've been on the Trent and the Desborough Cut, both places with plenty of boat traffic and walkers and fellow anglers. I like watching that aspect of fishing sometimes, watching life go by, and particularly life on a river. But this brings something else special, which is solitude. And okay, I can hear distant rumble of the motorway, never far from one in the southeast. But yeah, there's no dog walkers, there's certainly no boat traffic, paddleboarding, and it's a real welcome change to fish somewhere like this, particularly not having any idea what kind of fish might reside here now, apart from those other videos I've seen. I've certainly seen some nice chub come out to fellow YouTubers in the winter months. But yeah, perhaps if we can prove the potential of this river, whether that's today or on future trips, a few more fellow members might get to enjoy it, and without wanting to turn any venue into a really busy hotspot. I'm sure there's so much river here, you can walk for a mile or two, that it would never feel busy or overfished. And it's incredible just how much water the club runs. And there are a lot of members, but you come here on a sunny bank holiday weekend and have it all to myself, pretty much. Right, we've given that spot a good half hour, so I'm now going to move along and try the next. And this is a spot without too many accessible features on the far bank, because these big overhanging branches I've got above me, but it actually looks promising down on the inside, almost under my feet. We've got some eelgrass where it's clearly shallower, and then it looks like it might drop off under this tree into a bit of a deeper hole. So we'll give this 5 or 10 minutes and try dropping a worm in down here. Just touch ledgering, actually holding the rod, because it's quite a steep bank here, and got one finger hooked over the line, so I'll feel any plucks or indeed savage takes, and it's a really exciting way to fish. The great thing about worm is it's quite an instant bait, so if there are fish around, you've got a good chance of getting a bite within a few minutes if you've dropped it in the right place, or you can get a good idea conversely if there's perhaps not too much about and it's worth moving on. I had a couple of quite savage pulls. Here we go again, little tap. I think if it were a big fish it probably would have had it first time, but you never know. It's nice to get a sign in the second swim as well. Will it have another go is the question. Yeah, there's a little tap again. And we got him. Love that little bit of touch ledgering. And we got ourselves another stripey. Touch bigger. Not a lot bigger. Beautiful little fish though. As the sun creeps out from behind the clouds once again, I've just crept into another likely looking swim. And you can hopefully see why I'm so eager to explore. There's a big reed bank rushes downstream and a bit of a slack in front of that which may hold a fish or two. I've got overhanging willow on the far bank and a few rafts of dying weed right below my feet, which could be worth a try if there's any depth. So let's have a first cast here and see what might or might not be about. Well, nothing that time, but I'm near the junction of paths which either continues down the main river, which I will be doing very soon, but the other path goes off down to the little stream, mill stream. So I'm going to have a quick look at that, see if there's anywhere to drop the worm in for a minute or two. Look at this for snaggy haven. Trevor's obviously been busy and made this kind of swim accessible, but just look at the jungle of tree roots and branches in there. It looks very fishy, so let's creep down. Oh, before I even get near the water, I'm going to try lowering the worm right off the rod tip. See if there's anything in this slack under my feet. This doesn't half take me back to childhood. Just one rod, a few worms, landing net, and a bit of river that I don't know, some of you watching may know well and have fished it since you were a kid, but for me, brand new. It's a real jungle. Let's try a bit further out. Oh, snagged. But we're out. Try dropping it into that flow and letting it swing round. But yeah, doesn't half make you feel like David Attenborough. feel the need to whisper. There's so little water here in a way. It's such a small pool, but so much water in that it's just part of a long stream that in itself is part of the main river. And you've no idea what could be in here. Could be eels, could be more small perch. For all I know, there could be a barbel. And this kind of fishing really does get your adrenaline going, even if you're not catching all the time. You feel like you could at any second. And there are just so many spots that you feel like trying. Undercut banks, snags, rafts. So yeah, we'll give this a good 10 or 15 minutes before I go back up to the main river. And again, with no public access, you feel safe leaving your gear by the side of the path and just coming down here with the bare essentials. Perhaps not meant to be this time, but giving it a good 15 minutes, and I imagine when the water's a bit higher. Oh, just had a bite. Oh. Well, what was I saying about the winter months? Oh, that was a nice bite. Half the worm's gone. I'll try putting the worm head back out. It was down towards a real tangle of tree branches, twigs, debris. It'd be a serious hit and hold job if I was lucky enough to connect with anything but a small fish. I know there are, unfortunately, signal crayfish, the American crayfish, in this river from some of the videos I've seen, and I'm pretty sure that was a fish. It was, although the worm was nicely dissected. In fact, I've just had another tap. Although the worm did look like it could have been cut off by some pincers, the bite was too firm, too quick to be a cray in my limited experience of being pestered by them. So we may have found the lair of a fish. We'll have to see. But yeah, I was going to say, I imagine this spot when the river's a bit higher, a good foot or two up, perhaps later in autumn or winter, there's another tap. I could see this being a real fish holding spot. Now this does look a little bit more cray like, lots of slow pulls, taps. Can't be sure. Risk a strike. Oh, we got a fish. Amazing. Oh, little chub. Wasn't a crayfish after all. What a beautiful baby chublet. Mint. He may never have been caught. Just as I was thinking it might be time to move on, we get this little beauty. Let's get him back. So that's another species, and they're all small fish so far, but we've only been here an hour and we've had a fair few bites, 3 fish landed, and in these jungle-like swims it's just a privilege and an experiment really to catch anything. You know, it's you've no idea what to expect, so any fish is a bonus. I've got my worms with me, so let's give it another quick go before we move on. Again, that was a really confident bite, and it's a sign of wild fish. Earthworms washed in from the bank during floods, and slugs and other invertebrates. They're the kinds of food these fish have grown up eating. When they see it, boom, they grab it. Oh, there's another violent bite. Don't know how I missed that. We'll try again. I'm just dropping it in right behind a sunken log or branch that I can see. There seems to be a few fish down there. Straight away again. Just touching, waiting to feel it go properly. Touching that line again. So exciting when you're in the jungle like this. You've no idea what might grab the bait next. Let's check the bait. Oh, have we got one on? We've got one on. Another little fish. Oh, he's off. I think that was a chub. Another little chublet. Oh, I've never been so excited by modest sized fish. It's not like, you know, being on a commercial and being pestered by small stuff when you're after the carp, or fishing on a river and, you know, a big wide river, trotting perhaps with maggot caster and hoping to get through the small stuff in search of better stamped fish. It's, you know, anything's welcome. It's just seeing that tip pull over in such a wild piece of stream. Another little indication there. I hope there might have been a nice perch hiding down there, just waiting to ambush. But yeah, it seems there's quite a few small fish down there. And we're in again. Oh, and this one's putting up a bit of a scrap as well. It is a perch. Just about, swing it about. Under there, under these fronds. Well, how exciting is this? I hope you can sense how much I'm enjoying these relatively modest fish. The famous last cast. The last drop in this spot by the submerged log. See whether we can manage one more. So we're back on the main river. Really enjoyed that little diversion onto the tiny stream. It really wouldn't surprise me if there's some big fish in there too. Obviously didn't give it too long, but so much of the main river to explore too. Oh, there's another bite, another fish. It's another stripey. That's what you expect on the worms, of course, but I'm more than happy catching fish like this while exploring. Lovely, feisty little perch. Well, I've moved on again, and having walked over that metal bridge, I've found this lovely pool. I actually saw it the other evening and really fancied it, because there's a bit of extra flow as the water comes over a little shelf, drops down by a foot or two. Lots of cover on the far side. So this might have to be my last worm dangling spot before I head back up to settle down. It really does look nice, and again, apart from Trevor's hard work and clearing the path and a few swims over recent days, it really does feel like it's a forgotten spot. I'm sure there's plenty of you watching thinking, no John, I fish there regularly, but no, I'm just comparing it to to the heyday, if you like, that was described to me. We had matches on here and a few people chasing very big barbel. I've not seen a soul. It's been really peaceful. Again, whole stretch of river, maybe a mile, 2 miles to myself. Beautiful little pool like this. I've got one. A fish from the perfect little pool. What is that? Might be a little chub. We can just risk a swing here. Lovely chublet. You wanted that worm. Well, we're certainly not talking monsters, river monsters, but it's a lovely little chublet. Very welcome before evening falls. Well, it's a shame, but I'm back on the bridge and I've had to leave that lovely little pool after the one chublet. Very next cast, managed to get snagged up in something immovable and lost the lot. It's tempting to tackle back up, but the light is falling now, and I think it's time to pick a swim, grab a bite to eat, and see whether we can tempt anything a bit bigger with a pellet and paste as darkness falls. There is a whole other stretch of river, or the same stretch of river should I say, that carries on upstream from this bridge, at least mile and a half, and I'd love to have fished much more of it today, but with filming as well, it does take up a bit more time and I didn't get quite as far as I would have liked. So much more to explore on other days and nights, but I'll show you a few clips that I took the other evening when I was having a look round, and it does widen out and looks quite slow and deep up there, so I imagine that's where some of the bream, maybe roach and tench, possibly even carp can be caught. So much more for me to investigate, but for now, with the light going, I think it's time to head back downstream, pick my spot and settle down for the last 2 or 3 hours. And here is the spot I've chosen. I see a smudge of colour behind the trees where the sun's going down a lot earlier than it used to do a month or so ago. That's the view upstream. It's a little narrower here. Big reed bed on the opposite bank, and the fact that it does narrow off just means there's a bit more pace in the water here than some of the other swims I could have chosen. A lot of weeds and reeds close in on the inside margin as well, and downstream there's one or two overhanging trees which may harbour chub. But I'm hoping that this extra flow and the fact that the light is dropping may mean that fish are happy to come out and search the river. Put a bit of pellet in earlier, and hopefully that scent trail will bring, well, just one fish would be nice, up to investigate. And it's incredible how these evenings creep forward as we head towards or into September. It's just 8 o'clock and already feels like better chub and barbel light conditions. So I'll probably give it a good couple of hours. Hour before and hour after darkness is chub o'clock. Doesn't feel too barbely in this area, I've got to say. The pace is nothing spectacular. The river's really quite low, as I said up front, but you never know. Could be anything in here. So we'll go with a couple of 8mm halibut pellets on a hair rig. I'll wrap that in paste and sit it out, and I will come back to you either with a fish or to say my goodbyes before too long. Well, I haven't caught a fish yet. It's only just gone dark, and I'm not here to say goodbye, but I actually thought I'd make some recommendations. it's really got quite chilly quite quickly, as it does at this time of year. And watching the firefly light glow at the end of my rod tip, the beta light, it's a bit hypnotic. Just start to see a bit of steam or mist come off the river, and I'll be honest, it feels quite spooky. Brand new water, remember, I've never been on this river before in daylight or not fishing, and so to fish it into the dark for the first time, certainly atmospheric and makes the hairs stand up a little bit. It made me think of a book that I've really enjoyed reading this summer, and I'm not plugging it, I'm not being paid, not plugging it for any other reason than I really enjoyed it. And I know some of you have read my book, The Magic of Fishing, and that's got one chapter on a ghostly experience that I had as a young lad, night fishing in Devon. So if you've not read that yet, that's another obvious recommendation. But the book I've enjoyed this summer, just reading the odd chapter here and there, like little short stories, is called Disturbing the Water by a chap named Peter Wise, and it's a really good book. He's an angler, it's clear from the storytelling, and each chapter's a little ghost story to do with fishing of its own. There's carp chapters or stories, there's fly fishing related stuff, all sorts really, but really entertaining, quite creepy, and worth a read if you enjoy your books. The other thought I had, recommendations I should make, is fellow YouTubers who I know fish this river and know it far better than I can ever hope to get to know it, even if I continue fishing it regularly. One of those is Mark Erdwin, who I've really enjoyed watching over the years, and he does quite a few videos on the Loddon, catches some fantastic fish, barbel, chub, perch, so he's worth looking up. Many of you may know him, but if you fancy seeing the Loddon and some big fish, Mark Erdwin, Fishing for Memories, is fantastic. And there's another one called Chasing Shadows, and I think there's a good few videos on that channel as well, filmed on the Loddon. So it's not a completely forgotten river by any means. It just feels very quiet to me and undisturbed, and certainly from what Trevor's said, it's somewhere that, you know, a lot of members perhaps overlook, but worth a go. So back to the fishing now, and back to the darkness for me. Well, it's nearly 10:30, and with the drive still to come, and of course all the gear to pack up in the dark, I think it's time to call it a night. Not seen any ghosts, but not had a better fish on the pellet either. It's a little bit disappointing, but it's my first time on the river, never mind a new swim, so really to be expected. Would have needed a bit of beginner's luck, I think. Obviously not knowing where to fish or whether I'm even using ideal bait and tactics, but I've got faith in what I've been doing. I've caught plenty of fish from other venues doing similar, so I think it's just a bit of bad luck. And obviously the river's still very low and clear after a fairly dry August, so yeah, the biggies aren't coming out to play, well, not yet anyway, and I think it's time to say my goodbyes now. If you're one of the 70% of viewers who haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please hit that button. It really would mean a lot. It only takes a second. There's loads more videos like this. And for all you faithful followers, thanks as always, much love. Leave a comment, and I'll see you again soon on the bank.